any public body comment? No? Oh, shoot, you just made me.
Just a note that we are recording, it's not live streamed, but it is being recorded.
All right. Well, we'll go to number 3. We've had a lot of questions about the FOP, the ARPA, and the MOU, and how it's going to tie in and the money it's going to cost. And it's kind of, we can't move forward with anything else with the ARPA funding until we figure this MOU and the cost out. That allows the legislative committee then to go back to ask me and try to figure out, what we can do to help, give them some of the premium pay from the problems that have risen from the COVID virus. So I'm up for anybody that wants to start a discussion on this. Don, you've been very highly involved in this through your legislative. Sheriff McReynolds, you've got a lot of numbers. And Erica, I know you've got a lot of numbers too that we can try to hash back and forth and figure something out here. Who would like to take the first? Erica, would you, or Sheriff, you want to kind of state what you're seeing? And
I guess, so one of the things, and Don and I started talking about this, not only for this year, but projections for next year, trying to figure out how much, of the ARPA funds were being spent. And I think there was a lot of course, we had early discussions on this, then we had the changes to the ARPA rules, with the county taking the lump sum, and it broadened what, could have been spent. But as of right now, we have several employees, I believe it's 4 at least, that their entire salary and benefits is coming out of ARPA. And I personally feel that the MOU does not say that has to happen. That can come out of basically the general fund's budget. The portions, that would come out of that would be their, the premium pay, the bonus, could be the small increase to shift differential. And so the amount that's getting used of ARPA is much greater when we have new employees, their entire salary and benefits coming out of ARPA, which was an acceptable expense under ARPA originally, but I think once you went with the standard deduction, it's not something that we have to do, and the MOU itself it's not spelled out in there that has to be done. And so those numbers are greatly different if we're adding all salary and benefits to, I believe it's 4 individuals right now, or 3 more additional deputies plus an additional corrections for next year. So those numbers would be greatly different depending on how that was handled.
And how come it started out that way? I mean, how come it,
Because, it started out that way because, we were talking about, using the ARPA funds for this purpose, and that was an acceptable expense of replacing employees up to head count under ARPA.
I think the main part of it was when we did the MOU, we did not have the ruling that we could take the lump sum and use it for whatever we wanted to. So we were trying to make sure we maxed out what we could on this, because it had to be through certain guidelines that were given at that time. And just like the government likes to do to us, they changed the rules in the middle of the game, so to speak, and they changed the rules on it to give it a broader way of using it, and we didn't have to kind of carry on with those rules.
So I guess, we just need some guidance on how we're gonna finish this fiscal year out, and then how we're gonna do it in the next fiscal year. Yeah.
Okay.
The other thing, the other one issue and we've talked about it before, and I don't know as I fully understand it, but is the pay and the premium pay on the bank comp time. That was one thing that I guess I didn't agree on. So if an employee works a day off, they're required to work a day off, work an 8-hour day, that ends up being time and a half, 12 hours. As of right now, they're getting their premium pay is being paid on their bank comp time. I guess where I'm in disagreement with that is the fact they're not requesting pay, they're banking their comp time. And I just don't see how, I guess, that'd be tracked later, how that wouldn't end up being an overpayment later on, or, I mean,
I think we discussed this in the fees and salaries.
okay.
And from
I
the
guess
very
that's-
beginning, we started tracking the premium pay we were paying on all overtime hours worked. Because we have 9 new pay types in the payroll system to track this fiasco of a mess. When SLEP Tier 2 deputies do not get IMRF on overtime, you can't take that premium pay and throw it into the comp time bank and then pay the premium pay on it. I spoke with IMRF when this MOU was passed, and because we're doing a premium pay on all hours worked, premium pay on the overtime hours for SLEP Tier 2 do not qualify for IMRF. The other discussion that was also had with Bruce from Bellwether was that during it's a short-lived thing, it's 3 years or until the money runs out, whatever comes first, when they already had a comp bank built up that didn't qualify for premium pay. So what we've done is we've paid the premium pay on all hours worked, on all overtime hours. We didn't pay them their overtime, we paid just the premium pay on those overtime hours before those overtime hours got moved into their comp bank. Because then it's impossible, if you throw them all into this comp bank, which already has issues with IMRF that we're gonna have to go back and figure out, because we're putting holiday not worked in there, which qualifies for IMRF, we're throwing overtime hours in there, which doesn't qualify for IMRF. So when these people use that comp time, they take a day off and they get 8 or 10 hours of comp pay and decrease that bank. That should not, for some of those hours, for SLEP Tier 2, it shouldn't qualify for IMRF. So we can't change this midstream now. All those hours that have gone into that comp bank, they've already received the premium pay for. That's all they received. The premium pay on those hours, because we have it broken down. If you're a SLEP Tier 1 deputy and you get overtime, a $9 an hour overtime, that goes towards your IMRF. If you are a SLEP Tier 2 deputy and you get that $9 for those overtime hours, we're paying it out. What we pay out on that paycheck does not qualify for IMRF. If we just lump all these hours into a comp bank, which is already a disaster because of holiday pay, how do you ever differentiate? Then you have to track 2 different comp times. This one they earned under, and so we get down to December, or let's say August of 24. They all bank or cash out their comp time, usually in August, or a bunch of it. Or they do it in August 25 and they say, well, I earned this 100 hours while we were still under premium pay, you owe me X amount. If we pay it all up front, then there's no questions, and when ARPA runs out, it's out. I don't know how you could possibly track. What we are already tracking in my office because of this MOU is beyond a nightmare. And Bruce from Bellwether sat right there and said, you have to track it all. The sad thing was with the CARES money, you just took an entire sheriff's budget payroll for one pay period, and it was X amount, and you just did it. That doesn't work with the feds. We have to document everything. So they're not going to be overpaid. They're not going to be double paid. I'm just making sure that we are not yet again inflating IMRF with funds that don't qualify. So that's the only pay, when they take 10 hours off, or take 10 hours comp time and they use it, they get paid their wages for the 10 hours with no premium pay because they've already been paid the premium pay on that overtime when they earned it. So they're not getting paid for something they didn't ask for. We're paying the premium pay when it is worked. That's the best way to track it, because otherwise, again, we run out of ARPA funds, or we're past this time frame, and they're going to say, well, you owe me this because I earned it during premium. Well, I think we need to be right exactly where premium pay is as we go along. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It doesn't, and I'm glad you're tracking it, because I don't know how it can be tracked. Because if they turn in comp time, get paid, they get paid at their current rate. correct? When they cash it in,
No,
they don't?
I don't understand what you're,
Okay,
when
so,
they use, when they get, let's say a deputy, works 5 hours, 10 hours, I don't know, 2 hours of overtime. Puts it on a timesheet, 2 hours of overtime, but he wants to bank that. You actually bank 3 hours into that comp bank. That's why when a comp bank is cashed out, we convert it back to the time and a half. Because they work 2 hours of overtime, but that should be paid at time and a half. So when we put it over in the comp bank, that's 3 hours that goes into the bank. Now, if they were to cash those 2 hours out, it would convert back to 2 hours at time. It's a nightmare. I mean, you just,
Wait a minute, how does it go from 3 back to 2? I don't understand that part.
if they're cashing it out. Because how do you use 2 hours of comp time at time and a half? Let's say you wanna leave after an 8 hour, after
You're
8
talking about
hours.
taking time off, not.
No, I'm talking about cashing it out. I was
Cashing
talking
it
about
out.
cashing it out. If they use it, then it just depletes by the hour.
Okay.
You can't, if I need to leave 2 hours early to go to a doctor's appointment and I wanna use 2 hours of my bank time, comp time, you know, it's kind of a nightmare then to put, okay, I'm only gonna to decrease the comp bank by an hour and a half. I mean, at some point you've gotta convert it to where it would be actually used, you know, which is in regular time. But when it's cashed out, you convert those hours back to the time and a half.
And then they're paid just straight time for it?
No.
Then
Because
you're
the
paying
contract
time and a
says
half.
they're paid, all comp time has to be paid at time and a half. Now, prior to me taking office, they turn in 480 hours, cash out 480 hours at straight time. We had no proof that we were actually paying them time and a half.
So all
So-
that time in the comp bank is not all overtime? Some of that's regular time, some of it's overtime?
No,
100% it was overtime when it was put in there?
no.
It
Could
can
be
be both.
accumulated.
It might be,
So it can be both.
holiday not worked that they're allowed to bank. It's just sitting in this bank because they're gonna use it at straight time, so it's sitting here at straight time.
Okay.
But when they bank it, you have to take it from earned at 2 hours overtime, and you have to convert it to straight time so they can use it, which is 3 hours. And then if they decide to cash it out, you convert it back. If they decide to just take 3 hours off, then they get those 3 hours. If they, you know, need to leave early for 3 hours, you take these 3 hours, they get paid for 3 hours. Which then they're whole, because they technically only bank 2 hours at time and a half. But if they cash it out, you convert it back to
The 3 hours again.
time and a half wages.
Yeah, we went back to 2, then we went back to 3. When we did time and a half. Okay.
I
I guess, so when they turn in to cash out comp time, they get paid at their current rate though, that's what I'm
No,
asking?
we convert it
Well, I mean, they
to
get.
time, if they get paid at their overtime rate, which is time and a
Right,
half.
their current overtime rate.
Yes.
Okay, so I guess,
With no premium, there won't be any premium pay. No one's cashed out comp time yet under this pay. When they
Okay.
use it right now, we're not paying premium hours on those hours used. Because we paid it on the front end when we loaded it into the bank so that they would make sure to get the premium pay. And it wouldn't be banked over here. You know, the other thing is these people can carry over 480 hours for the entire lifetime that they're at Shelby County.
well,
So-
or let's say, I got a different scenario then, let's say they take a day off, they take a comp day off, they get their day's pay. And the way it's set up right now, they would get the premium pay
No.
on that.
Not if they use comp. If
Okay,
they
not
use
if they use
sick,
comp, okay,
vacation, or personal,
okay.
then
I
yes,
was-
we're paying that benefit time with premium pay on those hours,
Okay.
but not comp time, because when that comp time moved over into this category, we're paying it up front. And we've been paying it up front, and how we would change now midstream and go back and try to figure out every employee, how many overtime hours have they earned under this MOU would be, I mean, I'd have to hire a new person. I'm already at the point where
Okay,
processing a payroll
so,
is,
so basically, if they use comp time, but if they use a vacation time,
then they get
they
premium
get the
pay on those
premium pay.
hours. Yes.
Okay, so if I was a deputy and I needed to take 2 hours to go to the doctor or whatnot, dentist, then it would benefit me to take my vacation time.
Not necessarily, because you already got your premium pay on that comp time. You already
Okay.
received it.
Okay.
You've received it when you
Okay,
worked
that's
it.
where I'm,
You've already received the premium pay. We're
Okay.
paying all premium pay. They're asking to to bank comp time. I don't know how we bank premium pay. But we can't track, and even Bruce from Bellwether has said this, we need to know exactly where we are with ARPA funds. We can't have a whole bunch of hours sitting over here that we're gonna owe premium on, because if they just decide, I wanna cash it all out, we might not have enough ARPA funds left to cover it. And then where are we?
And then 2 or 3 people try to do it, and it's not gonna work.
And you do that, you get your comp time cash out in August when they all cash out, and we already, you wouldn't even know we might not have the money left by the end of August to pay all that premium pay. At least with a straight regular payroll, we'll have some kind of idea.
But we also had not retirees, but people who had quit and left, trying to come back and get premium pay, did we not, on some of that overtime?
On the comp time that
On
they
the comp
cashed out before, and they didn't earn that comp
Yeah.
time under
Right.
premium pay.
So
We cannot
that's why
do
we
that.
need to get this settled, but we don't do
They
that.
earned all that
Because we got all these people that
before the
quit.
premium pay was even a thing.
Yeah, yeah.
But and it's just, the most important thing is, this is the way we've tracked it from day one. We cannot change midstream.
But you can, if budgets allow, quit paying the base salary for the new hires out of ARPA funds, is that correct?
We're not paying, we need to clarify, we're not paying it out of ARPA. We first need to get the language straight. We're not paying any of this out of ARPA. We're reimbursing from ARPA to cover certain expenses. All payroll is still coming out of the general fund.
Okay, so, but you could quit,
We
you
can,
could quit taking that base pay out of ARPA and transferring it to general fund if the sheriff's budget.
if the board chooses that's the way they want to start tracking it and change it, then we'll change it. I'm only doing what we were instructed to do from the beginning, which was we are going to cover the base pay of new employees with ARPA funds. We're going to reimburse.
Okay.
So if you want to no, the MOU doesn't speak to it, but I'm going to be honest with you, the MOU doesn't speak to half of what we had to do in my office. And the prior one, before we went to standard allowance, was supposed to be on revenue lost. We got in a great big hurry and we, did things and, I don't know, but this is the way we've tracked it. I can't change any of it going backwards. If that's what the board so chooses moving forward, then, on that spreadsheet that I send to the entire board, those lines will change going forward. But this is the report, this very report that you all get is the report that is going to the feds. This is what Bruce is reviewing on a regular basis. I'm either sending it out once a month or almost every payroll to the board, so we know exactly where we are with these ARPA funds.
Is Bruce okay with how the reports and stuff that you're sending him to kind of okay and everything?
Oh, yeah, and he
Okay.
said you have to track it. It's kind of like, I know there's still an issue that'll probably come up and we'll probably have a grievance. They want this premium pay added to their base pay. And Bruce sat right there where Mr. Tate's sitting and said, you have to be able to track it. You can't just lump it with base pay, because then you have absolutely no way of tracking it.
Who voted to pay premium pay for base pay? I
It's in
lost
the
that
MOU,
out.
Gary. It says the
Where at?
premium pay, it's the MOU's 2 pages long.
I got it right here, yeah.
Well-
Where does that say that,
Well, here, let me
that
see
you're
it.
gonna pay the base pay?
That's not what we're talking about. You're talking about 2 different things. The
No, I'm
MOU
talking
says
about
they
the base
want it,
pay. Is what I'm talking about.
I didn't say that it had to be paid. From the beginning, that's the way they said to do it. All new employees, their base pay would be reimbursed from ARPA. The MOU states that the premium pay will be added to,
To the wage matrix.
to the wage matrix. Let me find it here exactly.
Yes, which would be their pay rate.
But you have to be able to track it. A
I
premium
agree.
pay is separate than from a base pay.
And you've got a separate column on the sheet.
But I'm telling you, there's complaints because we're not adding it to the base pay and paying it all as one. says wages.
Well, no, it's
pay-
gotta be separate, I can see that,
But I'm telling you, the language in the MOU doesn't clarify that, and you're having complaints. There could be potentially a grievance coming down the road because it says, each step of the matrices shall be increased by $6 per hour per unit A for essential worker premium pay through August 31 of '24. And then the $3, but it says right here, each step of the shall increase, and it's adding to their base pay, and that can't be done. It's not added to their base pay, it's tracked separately. It has to be tracked separately.
I agree.
Getting this, but it's not listed as base pay, is that
It's
what
not a
we're-
base pay, it's a premium pay.
Pay.
But they wanted it, and that was worded, that it would be added to the base pay of the wage matrix. I mean,
So what you're
Which-
saying
which
is
you would
they,
hear more than I
they
would.
say the contract rate should have changed by $6.
That's,
Oh,
I'm gonna
no,
let
see,
you
I haven't
speak
had
to it.
anybody mention that to me. I mean, nobody's asked me that. You know, said that their wages went up.
Well, I
that much,
received
they're receiving
hourly
premium
changes
pay.
from his office that say, you know, the base pay going, I'm just gonna use round numbers from, where the contract might say 17, but the papers I received, which he's probably not filling out, says $20 on their base pay. When they get, if they,
Well, no, I agree.
their hourly rate, you know, doesn't, and we've
No, I don't
heard
expect that.
grumblings and we've had complaints in my office because we're not adding it to the base pay. You know, if you're a $20 an hour employee based according to the contract, and you work a regular hour, it doesn't go to $23, it's $20 an hour with
I
your
agree.
$3 premium pay.
I
I'm
didn't say it
just-
should,
and
I
I'm just
never did think that.
Making you aware of what I hear in my office and what could potentially be coming down the
But if
pipe.
we got some people that their whole salary are coming out of ARPA, that's what I think
Being
I'm seeing.
reimbursed, being
Being
reimbursed.
reimbursed,
not coming
we have
out.
to use words, it's being reimbursed by ARPA. Comes out from the sheriff's budget, but then ARPA reimburses the sheriff's budget, so, you know,
But that means it's being paid by ARPA then, if it's being reimbursed, right?
yes.
But that's what I was told to do, Gary, that's the
Who?
way we've processed it.
Who? That's what I don't know is who.
What?
Who said to do it?
That's
the
what
way.
we discussed, and that's what we
Who-
discussed
we?
from the very
I
beginning,
never
and we
heard it.
sat with Bruce, and we had a meeting over there with Jessica and Jay and Bruce, and because you were told if we used it here, it would free up some other monies in other
That
areas.
wasn't presented when
Right,
we
and-
voted the MOU, that was not presented.
And I think there was timeline changes, like I said, on the rules of what we had to use it for originally, and then what was acceptable once
I
they
agree,
did
the
the
rules
standard
changed.
deduction. Yeah.
But when we voted on it. I
Gary, when we voted on it,
never
A,
thought
it
of
was
voting to
illegal,
pay
and
full
B,
salary.
we had not had any discussions about how this was gonna be processed. There was not one discussion with my office over that MOU about what it would take to do the tracking according to the federal guidelines. It was not discussed with Bruce from Bellwether. There was no discussion.
I didn't know that. I wasn't in any of those meetings, so I did not know that, and it wasn't presented to the board, so I did not know that. I didn't have a clue.
So basically what we need to do here is we need to decide, do we take the entire salaries out of, be reimbursed by ARPA, or are we gonna just have the extra pay taken out of the ARPA and this regular set part of the salary come out of the sheriff's budget? That's the main thing we need to decide, because once we decide if that's what we want done, then we can come up with a better idea how much money we're going to use, how much money is available then. I mean, we can hash back and forth how this is working and the trials and tribulations we've had, but we're not getting anywhere that we need to be getting in, and the reason we've called this meeting.
We need to try.
I
So-
would just like notes somewhere, clearly somewhere in notes where county board decided that we're gonna track it differently, so that those notes can go in my file, so that when I have to send reports to the federal government and they say, why did this change? We at least have documentation that I didn't make an executive decision,
I
that
would
there was
agree with
board
that.
action, that we are going to track it differently.
Would you feel that would need to be done as a resolution of some sort then, Jay? I perfectly agree with you, Erica.
I
guess
think
we
we
can
gotta
just
dot
keep
every
doing
I
this.
and cross
this-
every
Yeah.
T.
this crossing thing with our, and banging heads against each other here on
Yeah.
some of this stuff. We just need to move forward with what we're here for.
How much money are we talking about the next 2 years with the ARPA fund?
It depends on what all you decide to
Yeah.
pay with it.
Hold on here.
Hold on.
But after we decide this, then we can come up with an estimate, correct?
We've got some, once we figure this out, we've got a better idea of a better handle on where we're at. David?
So on the example, there's used for $20 regular pay and $3 premium pay. So on these 4 employees that are getting the salary and benefits paid completely out of ARPA, I'm just trying to figure this out so I know how to do this. So technically, they're getting $23 paid out of ARPA. Is that what
It's
I was-
on the spreadsheet that I sent you. It's broke down,
I'm
every
asking-
single
I
employee
just
into
want
their
that
base pay,
question
their
answered.
premium. It's all right there as to what's being paid.
So is that the way it's being done?
I believe so.
Okay, so for these 4 employees, if we really need to cut the 20 out and just have the 3, is that what I
Correct.
understand
That's
that?
basically what we're trying to get done here.
So the 20 would just still be normal
It
general
comes out of
budget,
his regular budget,
and
just
the
like
3
he
would
would
just be the normal
anyway.
premium pay?
Yep.
Good enough.
Okay.
I understood. Good.
Bobby, I know you had a question or, sorry.
So, yeah, no, we're on the same page here on questions. In the budget you inherited, it rose from last fiscal year to this fiscal year. Is there sufficient funds to cover additional deputies, or was that budget set up for a skeleton crew?
There. Now, going forward from today, or, you know, I probably can't answer that because I didn't prepare that budget, so, but we could not go to full staffing today and be able to absorb it, but a lot of that was eaten up from overtime, from being short-staffed and having guys work nearly 7 days a week, you know, with a couple of them being, you know, overtime days.
Well, so even when you go to more robust staff, then you're mitigating overtime, which
Yes.
should reduce
Yes.
your consumption
Yeah.
of the budget.
But as far as this fiscal year, the damage was done there.
So-
On this budget.
So it should be pretty feasible to make an agreement where these new employees come out of his budget,
Right.
and then we preserve the ARPA, stretch it out.
Well, they're all coming out of the budget, just so, I
Right.
really want to make clear.
Right.
It's just
I
like,
understand.
David, I was speaking, and I was speaking. The other thing I would like to say, it's the same way with AFSCME, and as we're in preparations for our budgets now, any of these going forward are going to be in the general budgets. We're budgeting ARPA through the general fund and then just reimbursing. So those general fund budgets are going to increase considerably as long as we have this ARPA funding, because it first has to come out of each of our department budgets. One thing that in his budget too, that probably wasn't planned for even last year, was the union contract change to where you could do the, it used to be all new deputies started at this lower rate. When the new contract allowed for, what do you call that? Lateral hires, so you get a lot of lateral hires coming in at quite a bit more money, which probably was not reflected in the prior sheriff's budget, because nobody knew it was coming down the pipe.
Right.
But they still had experienced people when they set up the budgets, so those people weren't gone, so I'd say they did budget the experienced people. Those people weren't gone when they presented their budget.
I'm just saying it
Those
could
people
cause an
left
issue.
afterwards, so I don't think it
But
did
the-
create a problem.
but the
They were-
lateral-
I said it could, I didn't say it did.
But the
I'm just
lateral
saying.
hire-
I didn't either.
Would change the picture of bringing somebody in at 20 versus 30, because if they're a lateral hire,
Right.
you're not bringing in your $20 an hour employee, you're bringing in a $30 an hour employee, which you were expecting to fill possibly with a new person, so I see that.
But we
I
still
will say
have
this, you
$30
had-
people.
Yeah, we already
The,
have it.
these
Well,
auditors, but we had
It's
a lot
one
of
person at a time.
vacancies. We had a question from the auditor this morning. The overtime and holiday pay in '21 budget was up $267,000, and they wanted to know why such an increase. We had 16 employees leave the sheriff's department last year, so it depends on when they left and what the expectation was. If you budgeted with 3 vacancies and you thought they were gonna come in at $20 an hour and you get a lateral hire at $30 an hour, it's different.
But on the flip side of that though, I'm looking at the budget that Sheriff presented to me last Thursday, I believe it was, last Wednesday. So his deputy pay would go up, but his training would go down because he doesn't send them to any training. So the budget could be a net 0 or it could be a slight increase
Right.
because of that. So that is just kind of a wash, I'm gonna say on that.
And I don't know what he budgeted for holiday and overtime, but we had to put the ARPA funds and the premium pays, the 9 different pay types for that under some kind of line item that was already in the current budget, and those are all under holiday and overtime. That's why holiday and overtime is astronomical this year.
It doesn't have that much of an increase over what it was.
Well, but I'm just
Yeah, I'm just saying it
saying,
doesn't.
he might not know that, and that might need to increase. I don't know where in that budget.
There's an increase.
He put the premiums,
Oh,
the
the
premium
premium
pay,
pay
the
is,
holiday pay,
yeah,
and,
yeah, I'm
but
assuming
I'm
it's
just
in the
saying,
premium.
and when it's tied
It's in
to
the
a
holiday.
payroll,
Yep.
into the budget, it's tied into that holiday and overtime
Yeah.
line item.
So I guess I think we're all in agreement that we can take a vote, but if somebody wants to do a motion on that. The other question I would have, and I don't need to know, I'm not sure if we need to tie that into right this moment, is it seems like the comp time situation with this premium pay and the ARPA is something we need to get figured out also.
I mean, I don't know that we just need to understand this is the way it's been done.
Okay.
Unless you all wanna hire someone that can go through all the timesheets in Jessica's office to go back and figure out how many hours we've already paid on, because we're paying it as we load it.
Okay.
I think we have to be,
I think what
Up
you're
to
doing is the
date.
correct way. And I like the way you're doing it,
Yeah.
and I'm commending you for the way you're doing that, because I think it's the correct way. I just want everybody to be in agreement that we feel that way,
Okay.
because I'm concerned like you are, that they come in at the end of the 25th year, year 25 when this is expiring, and they want all this paid at that rate. And I'm glad you're doing it the way you're doing it.
and then we're up to date with everybody, we own what they've worked, we're
And-
square.
I would say we probably, Jay, would you believe we need to have that in something written out better?
We could,
I mean, everybody in agreement on that aspect of it? I mean, we're gonna take votes here, but I just kind of trying to get a feel for some stuff here. I mean, is there any other discussion we need to make before somebody makes a motion on this, or? Don, will that help you out on your side?
That doesn't affect me at all that I know of in our negotiation with Ashley, other than because.
It clears up how much money is
What
available.
you're doing is, what that you're talking about there is, that just needs to be clarified so that the union understands what we're doing and why we're doing it.
Right.
That would be my
Right.
thinking, and I agree that that needs to be a resolution that the state's attorney needs to present to the board to be passed
Right.
at the next board.
And if we do the only the extra pay out of ARPA, that will give us more ARPA funding to use on other sources in the county. So that helps you with some figures that way for what you're working with right now.
Right.
And so,
Brian, are you, when you and I have talked about a supplemental budget that that your group is going to ask for, where do you want, are you wanting to let ARPA continue to reimburse the base salaries for the balance of this fiscal year? Or are you going to adjust your supplemental budget if the board changes?
As far as salaries go, I'm not even sure we'll need a supplemental budget. The numbers the office worked up next door was, so we have 7 remaining payrolls. They came up with $427,000 for 7 remaining payrolls.
That's for everybody in your office?
Yes, the
That's
complete.
420 additional?
No, that's all 7 remaining payroll periods added up. She came up with 427,000. the remaining amount of the budget was 410,635, so that's a negative of 16,364. That does not include, again, any of the ARPA funds. Of course, the ARPA funds did not come into my budget, they get reimbursed back to the general fund. So,
So as it stands now, your budget could or could not stand to have the base pays of these people not be reimbursed by ARPA.
I'd say the amount as of the 23rd of May, the amount of ARPA that's left is 84,995 from the original supplement of 420. So I don't see between the ARPA and the amount of general funds left, that was originally budgeted, why we couldn't finish out this year.
Doing it as Erica is doing it now,
Well,
or probably.
Either way, it's still coming out of his budget.
I understand what you're saying, but quit
Supplementing the.
supplementing his budget for those 4 employees' base salary out of ARPA money.
I understand that, but it's his budget, that's not gonna change his office budget. His office budget, no matter what, is going to have to cover these payrolls. It's just a matter of, are we reimbursing the general fund with ARPA funds toward that? It does not change the budget of each office.
so in that case, then, if we're just talking about the original budget amount, then it is short for this fiscal year.
Okay,
And there's
so
nothing
basically
we can
you're
do.
saying we need to continue to
No, that's not what I'm
reimburse
saying.
general fund
That's not
for
what I'm
that?
saying.
Now,
That's not what I'm saying. What and we have to understand, and it's just like with the $30,000 for the windows. We didn't budget that out of ARPA. We budgeted out of it was either the capital improvement or the build, whatever line item. That $30,000 is coming out of that budget. All we're doing is taking $30,000 from the ARPA fund and we're reimbursing the general fund for the $30,000. We're not budgeting anything out of ARPA. It's a temporary fund and it's just reimbursing other budgets. So when his payroll is gonna be what it's gonna be.
Right.
No matter what it is, whether it's the base salary, the premium pays, the holiday pays, the cash out of comp, is all going to be in his budget. What we're talking about changing is how much ARPA funds we're using to reimburse the general fund for those expenses. So no matter what we do with the ARPA funds, it's not, his budget's gonna be what it's gonna be.
Barb, you had something?
I just gonna say, when they start doing this changing those couple of things we wanted to change, Jay almost needs to work with Erica to make sure that we get that wording correct, I mean, cause we probably couldn't say it quite right, but she has to understand how we're gonna do it, and she can explain it to him, how we do it, that's how it has to be worded.
We've gotta get,
Yes, but I think you should work with him to do it.
if I get a,
Bobby had something there.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to cut you off. If
no, I
you-
just say, if someone sends me a copy, I can proofread it and I can, I'm more than happy to do that.
Yeah, I was just, I had something that's kind of been covered, but more or less after we passed the MOU, your budget was pretty much blown up
It was dead
anyway.
in the water.
So we were, here at the end of the year, we're gonna have to reconcile some things and then make it. Did we already do a budget amendment for you?
Well, the budget amendment, the money never got added to my budget, correct? The ARPA money,
It doesn't
come into
get
my
added
budget.
to the
So
budget.
I did not get a budget amendment, I guess. We had the approval to use the money for ARPA, but it never came into my budget.
Come out of the.
So, and there's still, of that amount that you approved out of ARPA, there's still 84,995
Right.
there.
Okay,
Yeah.
now we're dealing with two different MOUs. Are we going to have them worded the same, representing both unions, or are we gonna get into where there's difficulties between the two different unions because they got this and we didn't, and I think that all needs to be carefully worked out at one time and put into like wording as much as it can be.
But the FOP MOU was set up because of the critical situation.
Yeah.
And that's what we have to keep in mind. It was a critical situation. It's the reason we done it. So sometimes you have to let the whiners go.
But we need to write them at the same time and try to get some
I think
agreement with them rather than have the friction.
I think there is an imbalance to begin with on the contracts from,
Oh, definitely.
Well, yeah,
so
because
you can't make that all up in one.
No, I'm not talking about
So-
making it up. I'm concerned
Yeah,
about the
so-
wording, and we,
I would say we
we've
will
got to
do the
fill in
same
the
as far
amounts.
as on the, if something's done on the ASME side, I would assume the contract, the wording would be the same as what we're trying to put in. To
That's,
clarify on the MOU that
Yeah.
we're doing right now.
Well, we've got enough
to make
friction
that
there.
clarification.
we've got enough friction there now, and that needs to be put into the plan. I'm not saying change it all to
That
match,
just whatever,
but
that little extra money.
we have to
what
work
comes
with the
out of-
numbers.
Gets reimbursed by the ARPA funding and not the entire
I know.
amount, so. Gary?
I guess just two things. I think this discussion is on FOP only to start
Right,
with.
right.
And I do have a question. When the employees get a paycheck, is it show on their stub like how many dollars premium pay they got and how many dollars regular and overtime? So there's extra column in there for their premium pay now.
And the 9 different pay types, whether it's a holiday worked, not worked, holiday worked,
But
not
it's on
worked
their
with premium.
pay stub.
It's on their pay stub.
And so they know that they were getting the premium pay before it went into their comp bank. It shows that on their stub.
Mhm.
Okay,
It would be
see, I was
premium
never
pay,
aware of that
it's
until today.
premium OT. But they're
Oh, I've
saying
never
they don't
seen
want that, but we're paying it, and, you know, I
Well, you
mean.
gotta pay it to track,
we
but
have
I
to
can
pay
see
it,
where you
so.
have to pay it as earned.
But yes, it's on there, that's 2
So
pay
they
types,
know it.
premium pay,
It's being
just
paid,
$6,
and they know
premium
it.
pay overtime, $9. And
Okay.
for SLEP Tier 2 employees, that overtime, $9, does not get reported to IMRF for pension purposes.
And that means the premium on overtime does not get reported either?
That's what I just said, the premium pay, $9 overtime for SLEP Tier 2 deputies does not get reported to IMRF.
Okay,
Premium pay $6 gets reported.
and it's reported, okay. See, I didn't know any of that, so that's why we're here.
Somebody wanna make a motion?
Okay, well, I'm dense, I guess, sometimes.
Well, it's.
Where do we need, what do we need to do? Either continue the balance of this year, paying the base pay of these people covered by the FOP as it's been done, and then have the board pass it that for the next fiscal year, all base pay is not reimbursed by ARPA. Is that what needs to be, how it needs to be said? Or I don't know, I can't figure out how this needs to be worded or whatever.
Pardon?
That's what we're figuring out to decide, right? with this
Well, I
motion.
mean, that's what I'm trying to figure out, what,
My thoughts on that is, as of, if we were to do a resolution, say next Thursday night, from that next pay period is when you start just taking the premium payout from having ARPA reimburse the premium pay.
I'm sorry, I wasn't talking about premium pay. I understand the premium pay is like it is, I'm talking, went back to base pay.
And
Let's-
quit-
let's-
Base pay is just gonna come out of their budget like it normally would come out of their budget, so.
And
But
not
right
be
now, though,
not
their
be
budget is being
by
reimbursed from their ARPA, right?
Right.
And to stop that.
And next week is a payroll week, so next week.
So whatever,
will
whatever
continue to
payroll
be-
that would be for the ease of the treasurer department, if we pass a resolution, that would be what we would choose. From that point on, those 4 new employees and possibly 3 more, is what you said earlier? Am I correct on that?
Right, there's 3 more deputies positions and 1 more correction officer.
So it could
And
be-
those were estimated for next fiscal year,
Right,
but
but
again, I
from
don't
those,
think-
from that point on, June 10th, hypothetically, no pay, base pay comes out of, gets reimbursed by ARPA.
Right.
The only thing that would be reimbursed by ARPA from that point forward would be the premium pay
or the bonus would come out of that too.
The MOU pays.
Yeah, the
Yes.
MOU
Yeah.
pays.
And that payroll would be the June 24th payroll,
Okay, so we would try to get it set up to start on that time.
on the June 24th payroll.
Okay.
And then
I think it makes
that ends-
sense.
that
I think it goes
resolution-
back to what we were kind of wanting when things, but they, like I said, I think they changed the ball game, the rules in the middle of the ball game on us.
I mean,
and it
should we
really-
know where that's at? We don't know how much of the ARPA funds have to be used to cover the FOP MOU.
Well,
Is
we
that
have
correct?
We'll have a
we
pretty good
a
idea then.
Very good ballpark.
Yeah,
Right now, about just shy of 27,000, and we don't have a holiday on this payroll. There's nothing wonky on next week's payroll. Well, we'll have
Yeah,
one
Memorial
holiday,
Day.
so it will be up a bit because we'll have a holiday.
Right.
But that's all ARPA, I mean, that's all covered under the MOU
Yeah.
with premium pays. So you might figure $31,000 potentially, just to be safe, for that one payroll, and then it'll go down quite a bit.
Yeah, so I think there's a good way you can come up, with an easier way to come up with numbers
Come up
now
pretty good.
that are gonna be a more solid, solid number. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so,
How do we word this motion?
Brian? Should we just make a motion to approve of an end result and let them work the verbiage out, and then we can vote on that come next Thursday, if it's appropriate or not, or however? Because to get the verbiage right in here, I think it's gonna be a stretch.
I don't think
Nothing
we want
against us.
We just
but-
want to vote if we want to take it out of base or
I
not.
think if you just did a resolution,
That's all we need.
a vote to do a resolution to change the way that ARPA funds are tracked, you know, and not using base pays for new employees. I mean, that's
The new
general
hires,
enough,
yeah.
and then it, you know, the resolution can be more specific.
Yeah.
Not to be a killjoy, but to Gary's point, this is an FOP discussion. Your agenda doesn't say anything about voting on anything on Sunday. It does for ASME, but not for this. I know the rules are tough to follow, but sorry.
Could still be taken to the board and voted in a full.
Right.
You bet.
I don't think we have to have a motion to have a resolution done, because a resolution can be done by
He just
anything.
needs to do.
So I've got one that's probably getting done later on this week, but I appreciate what you just said, 'cause I wouldn't have picked that up.
I totally agree.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I would not have picked that up, because
Yeah, it's just
it does
discussion.
just say our,
Okay.
vote on,
Ask me, you can.
Yeah,
That's-
yep,
So if we
I
just
agree
say,
with what you just said.
yes,
You absolutely can bring that to the board.
on Thursday.
Yeah.
so we can say our discussion is to make this change, but we're not gonna vote on it.
Well, he just does the resolution.
Right, we
and
just
he
do-
gets it ready for the board meeting.
Jay,
Two resolutions then, one for the base and one for tracking how Erica is handling the premium pay, or not?
I think it can all be put in one resolution.
I think just one resolution within one line in there, you know, with the understanding that any overtime worked, the premium pay is
Paid at that
paid
time,
when worked.
yes. Yep.
Comp time can go in the bank, but premium pay, all premium pay is paid,
Yeah.
you
Yep.
know.
Is,
And when they go to cash in that comp time,
Yeah.
it doesn't,
yeah,
it's already been paid the extra
Just the premium.
premium paid on it. They don't get
So we don't pay
extra
it
pay
unless
in
it's
26 when they cash in
That's the
that.
best way I can.
That's why we had her wait.
follow in my head.
Brian, can we get this sent
Like
out?
I said,
Oh, excuse me.
tracking that later on in 2026, I think.
It's gonna be a nightmare.
But that's, yeah.
Can we get a copy of this sent early to the people here that we can look it over, and if there's problems or questions, we can get hold of each other if
I
there's
would
something.
see there wouldn't be a reason this couldn't be written up in the next 3-4 days.
Oh, yeah, I'll get on.
And the two of you will work and make sure everything is, the verbiage is what we feel is appropriate for what we're trying to get accomplished here. Okay.
on the verbiage that we're talking about on how things are labeled and listed on their check stubs, Does that need to be an FOP negotiation conversation? Or,
I think it's already on there for pay
It's
stubs being
already
done
on
that
there,
way,
pay
so it's already being done, and
There's nothing in the MOU that says you have to pay it on the front end or the back end. The bottom line is they're getting their pay.
yes.
They are whole. Our employees are whole.
so we just need to create a resolution that defines and specifies this is how we're doing it, why we're doing it.
Yeah.
Okay.
All premium pay will be paid on overtime hours when worked. The hours can go into the bank, but the premium pay is paid.
And then the only thing being reversed of the wages is the premium pay from ARPA.
On
The
new
rest of it
employees.
just, yeah, on those new employees, the 4 that we currently have, and the possible 4 next year. You said 3 deputies and corrections. if I
Right,
remember
or
right.
anything in the MOU, which
Right,
would also
right.
be their bonus at the end of the year.
Yep. Yep.
Their incentives would be paid per the
Right.
MOU,
And then-
just no base pay.
Is there, do you feel comfortable with having, being able to have some hard numbers
You said
in?
it's hard to
Well,
understand.
I think our group needs to have some kind of a number of how much ARPA
Will be available.
will be available, or, you know, the sheriff is, the sheriff's ARPA money is going to be transferred to the sheriff's budget for the next year, based on, I mean, I realize it's a shot in the dark, but that's the best you can do to know that, okay, our group has $750,000 to negotiate with ASME, or we got $1 million, or we got no dollars. I mean, that's what I was trying to get.
Yes,
ironed
and
out.
is there a possible way you could get Don a number today? I know they're meeting
By
with.
3 o'clock this afternoon.
No.
And I just put you on the.
I'm not gonna guarantee that I can by 3 o'clock today.
I mean, it doesn't have to be a hard number,
A
but
ballpark.
just a ballpark of what you think, so that he has something to work with
I
later
can
on.
try.
Okay, I would appreciate that if you
I,
could do that.
we have, and I
We
don't
could
know,
reschedule,
we have a
we don't have to
ballpark
have it today.
for what we
Well,
would
that's when
be
they're,
quote unquote in our budget, even though it doesn't come into our budget, but that's only on our side of it, you know, I guess the other would be the estimate of like that in the IRF.
Yeah, and that's,
Okay.
you know,
what'd you say,
that's-
Brian? Sheriff?
So we have an estimate for next year, what the MOU, if it was being put into our budget, which I realize it's technically not, but on our side of it, we have a number of 281,000 is
For-
what we would need of ARPA for those.
For next year,
Right, but that's only my side of it, not
the
the
retirement.
treasurer side of it,
yes.
which is the IRF and
Yeah.
FICA and anything else that.
Well,
comes out
if
of
you
it.
could try to, if you don't think it's possible, we've already had there
I
could be a
will do my best.
rescheduling. And if,
No, you don't wanna reschedule Ask Me today, I'm gonna tell you right now.
Yeah.
That would not be a good idea.
well, I'm just, if you could help us maybe and.
I will do my best.
Do your best. I appreciate that, and I'm sure everybody in this room appreciates that also. So I feel we accomplished what we came here to accomplish today. Is there anything else that needs to be discussed?
I think so. I would like to discuss with Don what we've got in mind as a group for AFSMI, so he's got an idea what our opinions are.
I don't bet you have everybody seen, everybody got a copy of the original ASME proposal that here a couple of months ago, correct?
From like February or March, yeah.
I'd like to hear what would be where this group thinks we need to go with that.
With, where we need to be, but I think that needs to be closed session.
Yes, you're exactly
And we
right.
can't go into that here.
No, not here. We
No.
can't.
It's not on the agenda to go in closed session on that, so.
No, but I mean, you don't do any negotiation in an open session.
Right.
So we've
So
got-
if we had that on the agenda, we could do that, but it's not on the agenda, so we cannot.
I don't wanna talk about it first.
Okay.
That wouldn't be right for us to talk about it here, and you're gonna have a meeting this afternoon, that'd be a stupid thing to do.
So, sorry, that's just the rules we play by. Or try to sometimes. you know, I would just assume not, just in case. Not that I don't disagree with you, but
And I think you're right, because I think I've done it in other meetings. I think another committee I'm on, I think we do.
Two things that are not required on the agenda is public comment, but you still have to have a public comment, and you're not required to list closed session, but you can have a closed session.
hey, if you guys wanna call a closed session, I'll call it. I'll take the wrath if it comes down on me.
Well, they're the only ones that are gonna complain anyway, so it wouldn't make any difference,
There's others.
you know?
You guys, give me some direction on what you'd like to do
I
here.
guess I think these guys are on that bar, but there's 3 of them on that committee.
4 of us here.
Okay, there's 4 of you gonna be in that meeting this afternoon, and I think they would like our input, and I think to do that, we need to
Can
be
you
in
stay in
closed
closed
session.
session if you're in the public and you're not on the committee?
He's not in the public, he is on the committee.
Yeah,
I'm
he's
on
one
this
of these
committee,
You're
we're
on this
discussing
committee?
it. Yeah, I'm on this committee, yeah, I'm on the budget committee.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Everybody here is on the committees that would be involved.
Gotcha.
The only ones
I see
You're
4,
not
1,
in.
2, 3,
That's
5
it.
people that would have to, well, 6. I guess you could stay because of our counseling.
legal counsel,
So
yeah.
1, 2, 3,
There's 9 of us on the
4
budget
people
committee.
that would have to step out. So if we want to, I'll call one now if you want me to.
I would like to, just because I think they'd like to have our input.
All right, we're gonna go into closed session.
I'll second